1 second. Okay, you are recording and we are live on YouTube and you have 4 members, as I can see.
Okay. Well, in that case, I think we're ready to move forward. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the December 2nd, 2020 meeting of the Danbury Planning Commission. We will open by calling the roll. Mr. Urice.
Here.
Ms. Hofstadter appears to be absent for the moment. Mr. Chiocchio.
Here.
Mr. Sylvain.
Here.
Mr. Renz is absent. Mr. Haas is absent. Okay, so Chairman Finaldi is here, so we will not be seating any alternates, and we'll proceed. Let me know, Sharon, if Helen chimes in.
I sure will.
Commission members, hopefully you received via email or via the agenda, clicking on the agenda, the minutes of our November 18th, 2020 meeting. Unless there's any discussion on those minutes rather, I will entertain a motion to accept them.
So moved. Second.
Motion made and seconded to accept the meetings of November 18th, 2020. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The minutes of November 18th are accepted.
Aye.
Just a heads
Arnie,
up.
excuse me, Arnie, do you want to do a roll call vote?
Oh, yeah, oh, God.
I know, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we're gonna, I guess we'll have to stay with the roll call for now. So again, a motion has been made and seconded. A yes is to approve the minutes and a no is to not approve the minutes. Mr. Urice. Ms. Hofstadter is absent. Mr. Chiocchio.
Yes.
Mr. Sylvain.
Yes.
And Chairman Finaldi votes yes, the minutes are approved. Thanks, Jen. Remind me if I do that again, which I probably will. Okay, moving forward, Commission members, please note we do have a special meeting scheduled for December 16th, 2020. Jennifer will keep you up to date on that. You'll hear more correspondence on that prior to the meeting. As always, I have a brief introduction that I do because this meeting is being held on Zoom. If you'll indulge me, I'll just give you the longer version because we do have 2 public hearings this evening. Just a reminder, this meeting of the Danbury Planning Commission is being held on Zoom as a virtual meeting. Even though the meeting is a virtual meeting, members of the public and interested parties continue to have the opportunity to participate in a couple of different ways. You can participate via Zoom and see the audio and the video, or you can call in by phone and participate via audio only. Just a heads up, if you call in, we may have to ask you to mute and unmute your phone to avoid an echo. The instructions on how to participate in the meeting appear on the City of Danbury website, and all of the documents and materials that apply to the matters to be discussed during this meeting, including the agenda, are also available on the City of Danbury website. Also, as a reminder, the entire meeting will be posted on and can be seen on the City of Danbury website. As I mentioned, a copy of the agenda for this meeting is on the city's website. We will follow this agenda as per our standard practice. If prior to the meeting, any questions or comments or agenda items were submitted via email to Sharon, those comments will be read during the appropriate portion of the meeting. If there is a new public hearing, which there is this evening, we have 2, we will proceed as follows. We will first allow the applicant to make their presentation. We will next allow commission members to ask questions. We would ask the commission members to use the raised hand function on Zoom when doing so. After that, we will allow the public to speak. I will ask those speaking in favor to speak first and those speaking in opposition to speak second. If people are participating via Zoom, please use the raise hand function. If you are calling in, Sharon will call on you either by name or by phone number. In all cases, please state your full name and address when called upon to speak. In all cases, please only speak when called upon, and please be patient and respectful of others. All votes will be conducted via a roll call vote. And finally, please remember the technology is still new, not as new as it used to be, and glitches do sometimes occur. Please be patient if that happens. Thank you. We'll move right to our first public hearing this evening. 1 JAR Associates, LLC, D&B Wellness LLC. Application for special exception to revised site plan approval for a medical marijuana dispensing facility in the CA80 zone, 105 Mill Plain Road, C14063, special exception number 779. And again, the links to the site plan application, land use plans, including the floor plans, and the department staff report all appear on the city's website. I will read the legal notice. Legal notice, applications to be heard by the Planning Commission at public hearing in a web-based meeting hosted on Zoom on December 2nd, 7:30 p.m. Agenda to be posted will include instructions to access the Zoom meeting and application materials. Pursuant to Executive Order Number 71, Section 19C, notice is hereby given that the following applications will be heard. 1, public hearing. JAR Associates LLC, D&B Wellness LLC, application for special exception revised site plan approval for a medical marijuana dispensing facility in the CA80 zone, 105 Mill Plain Road, C14063, special exception 779. Arnold D. Finaldi Jr., Chairman, posted on city website and sent to town clerk and city website on November 19th, 2020. Is there anyone wishing to speak in favor of this application?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, for the record, Attorney Neil Marcus, a member of the firm of Cohen and Wolf, 158 Deer Hill Avenue in Danbury, and I'm here on behalf of the applicants, which are JAR Associates and D&B Wellness. JAR Associates is the owner of the property located at 105 Mill Plain Road, and D&B will be the proposed tenant to operate, hopefully, a medical marijuana dispensing facility in accordance with the recently recently amended Danbury zoning regulations, which would allow for the type of facility that will be licensed by the state of Connecticut Department of Consumer Protection under, if it's approved at the site. Just by way of a little history, hopefully all of you are familiar with the location of the site. This is just at the intersection, exit 2 of Interstate 84, or right next to the Trader Joe's shopping center, which is our neighbor to the west. The property consists of a building that was originally constructed by Tony Rizzo to house the Union Trust Company. That's how far back it goes. It's a 2-story office building with a full basement, and it has been used by a number of different tenants over the years as for office space. The applicant, D&B, currently operates a medical marijuana facility in the town of Bethel on Gorilla Road. And that was originally one of the first dispensaries approved for Fairfield County when the state first allowed the sale of medical marijuana a number of years ago. And interestingly enough, I'll share with you, when that facility opened, it was not without a little bit of controversy in the town of Bethel, because when medical marijuana was first allowed in the state of Connecticut, a lot of the towns immediately put in various regulations that essentially postponed dealing with the issue for at least a year while everybody figured out exactly what is a medical marijuana dispensary. So Bethel at the time did not have any prohibition, and it was approved. And that approval was challenged by some neighbors on Gorilla Road. And there were a number of hearings, which I participated in, and we were successful in upholding the decision of the planner, Steve Palmer, and the zoning enforcement officer, allowing a medical marijuana facility essentially as a pharmacy use in the zone that it was located in the town of Bethel. Subsequently in Danbury, just again, a little history, the zoning commission approved regulations to allow medical marijuana to be sold. And those regulations basically would require the dispensary to operate pretty much like a standard pharmacy. Now, without boring you, because you guys all heard this from me within the past year, the Danbury regulations were out of sync with the state regulations at the Department of Consumer Protection, which limits what you can do in a medical marijuana facility significantly. They don't want these facilities to operate like a standard pharmacy. They want them to be standalone, very, very secure facilities. And by the way, in Bethel, years ago, that was one of the issues we dealt with. What type of security do we have? How do we know that the marijuana will be sold only to service the needs of people who actually had prescriptions for the proper use? And we developed in Bethel, and it's still in place today, a very, very secure facility that limits. I remember the discussion was, what do you do when a person is physically challenged to get into the facility and has a health aid? Theoretically, the health aid wasn't going to be allowed in the facility because you needed to have a certain identification card to do it. Those early wrinkles were worked out. And I guess the reason I'm sharing this with you is that, to my knowledge, over the years up on Gorilla Road that the facility has operated, we've had no adverse incidences from operation. I don't think that the Bethel police were ever summoned to that site for any reason at all, dealing with the dispensary. So it really has proven out in that location to be a well-run and successful operation. And because of that, we're here. It is successful to the point that they have really outgrown the facility that they're in. And the reason that we've come to you tonight for a special exception and a site plan approval is to relocate to Mill Plain Road to a facility that's larger, is available now and meets our needs with some minor building modifications. And it is particularly well located at an intersection of 84. Gorilla Road, quite honestly, is off the beaten track. Not to say that the roads aren't adequate to service a facility up there. I mean, Stony Hill Road as a state highway is a perfectly adequate road. But in terms of convenience for people who want to go to the facility, it certainly is a little bit of a trek from an intersection to get there. Here on Mill Plain Road, it is a phenomenally convenient location for our customers and patients that use it. So it's location, it's the availability of the facility that brings us here for a potential relocation. Having said that, is to say that you are aware that the recent amendments to the zoning regulations allow the use in the CA80 zone where we are. We do it by a special exception, which is why we're here with a public hearing. And we do it based, of course, on a site plan. You'll see as we present this that the site plan that we're presenting is really not significantly different from what exists on the site today. The exterior of the building will not change. The parking lot will be essentially operated similar to what it is now. There'll be some improvements, and we'll do some interior renovations to accommodate the new use. So what I'm going to do at this point, having introduced the concept, I'm going to ask Steve Hambrecht, who I see is here, but he's currently muted. Maybe he'll unmute himself. Our project architect and site planner, and Ralph Gallagher is also on the screen, and he's done the site plan as well. So I'm going to turn it over to Steve to quickly explain the site and the facility as we propose it.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Neil. Should I share the plan? Should I bring the plan up?
Steve, if you would just again state your name and affiliation for the record.
Okay, my name is Stephen Hambrecht. I'm with Hambrecht Olson Design. I'm an architect in New Jersey, and I am the architect for DB Wellness.
Thank you.
Now,
You
so
can-
Steve, you want to bring up, Jen, how would you like the site plan to appear so everybody's looking at it together? Should
You can share the screen. I enabled the share screening, so he can share the screen.
Okay. All right, so as everybody can see, this is the proposed site plan. So the modifications that we're proposing are, I think, fairly minor. I mean, the parking lot exists as it does currently. We're only improving some of the number of parking spaces. There's a lot of empty space at the back of the lot at this stage. So we're trying to maximize the number of spaces that we can in the area in the lot. So currently, our proposal is, as you see here on Mill Plain Road, the ingress is at this location, coming down the side of the building, and then we have 45-degree angle spaces here. And the reason for this is that the current layout of the spaces doesn't meet the current codes. So we're modifying that to make sure we adhere to the local codes as far as the pulling cars in and out of the space. It's a little tight there now. So we're adding 45-degree angled spaces along this side of the lot. And then we're also modifying the back. The back of the lot is very inefficient in the way that it operates. So we're trying to maximize the number of spaces here. As you can see, there's a angled line here and some mailboxes here, which is very inefficient. So we're trying to make a longer concrete walk and landscape area here to allow for more parking spaces. And so the idea is that the customers will come in this area and have spaces to park on both sides here. And then as they exit the property, they'll come up the ramp through what was previously the drive-through. We're removing the curb that was used for the drive-through to allow the customers to exit easily out of the space. So the idea is that the entrance to the building for the customers will remain as it is currently, which is at the front of the space here near Mill Plain Road, at this area. The employee entrance will be at the rear, which is a lower on the site by about 4.5 feet or so. So that's down the hill. So there'll be an employee entrance at the back. So the idea is that we're trying to, we're not modifying the parking area so much as to just kind of maximize and take away some of the unused space that's currently existing in the parking lot. Is there anything else I should expand on, Neil?
No, but you might just touch, Steve, on what the plan is for how the layout of the building will be interior. Don't dwell on it too long, because quite honestly, it's not an issue for the decision on the site plan. But just if you briefly tell the commission,
Yeah, sure.
how the building's going to lay out and be used.
All right. So this is you can see, everybody can see the screen.
Yes.
These are the 3 floors of the building. The center layout is the main floor of the space. So you can see the customer entrance is at the front here at the bottom of the plan. And then there's a retail dispensing area for the patients to come in and get their marijuana. We have some office space in the back, a secured office space. The plan on the far left is the basement, which is entirely for the staff. And then at the back here, you can see where it says stair number 2. This is the entrance, which is lower by about 4 feet or so below grade. So that's where the employees will come in and then go downstairs to the employee area. The second floor is really unused. The intent, I think, is for some meetings of some sort on occasion. But the second floor, which is here on the left, is largely being used for employee use and some meetings and so forth. So that's the idea. So the modifications we're making inside the vault that was there for the bank is remaining. Most of the downstairs facilities and offices are remaining. We're clearing out some of the offices on the main floor to allow for a more generous area for the customers.
Thank you. I have to comment anecdotally. It is so refreshing to see an area designed for employees to actually gather, because right now, every office building I've been in has big signs up that employees shouldn't gather. So we do actually look forward to a day when employees can actually, eat lunch together, if nothing else.
Neil, if I may, before we proceed, just a quick question. With regard to the entrance and exit to the building, are customers allowed to enter and exit from the rear of the building, or will they all be directed around to the front?
The answer to that, and Steve will correct me if I'm wrong, is that the rear entrance is solely for employees.
That's correct.
The main entrance is customers, visitors, anybody to the building has to come through the front door, and that is for security.
Fair enough.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Now,
I'm just asking if there's any questions for Mr. Hambrecht at this time before we move on. I guess we're okay.
It's Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry, Joel, go ahead.
Sorry if this gets a little long, but I'm going to start the last comments and work up. You talk about the employee access from the back. I assume that's some kind of card key restriction to get in that door?
Absolutely, yes. There'll be a security card system to allow only employees into that back door.
Okay, and I understood the presentation. The employees would then use the stairs to get down to work areas and offices. Is that correct?
There are offices, yes, in the basement. There are also some offices on the main level, but yes.
Okay. Extended question to that access. How does a handicap get into the workspace in that building?
Well, we are proposing an elevator in the space as part of our construction. The elevator will be accessed through the customer area, so the employees and customers will be able to use the elevator. The elevator will have a card key access, which will allow only the employees to go down to the basement or up to the second floor.
So that is the customers really can't use the elevator at all, correct?
Well, at this point, there's no reason for the customers to need to use the elevator, since the only customer access really at this stage is for the main level. We will have if the second floor is deemed to be used for meetings of some sort, then the elevator will be going to the second level, and then the customers can use that elevator for that purpose, yes.
Okay, so employees who are handicapped that would need the elevator to get downstairs would have to come through the front door where the elevator can be accessed in the
That's correct. And the reason for that really is the fact that the back entrance to the building is in the middle of a staircase, essentially. So there's really, while the employees will be using that entrance, the front entrance is the accessible entrance, and that's where we've placed the elevator. So all occupants can use the front entrance, and with a card key access that for an employee that would have that, they can get down to the basement.
Okay. Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Joe.
I had some general questions about the site plan.
Well, I'll tell you, but I don't want to get too hung up. Let's let the applicant complete their presentation, because they may be addressed by future people presenting. So let's hold off for now, and then save that question for a little later.
Am I fishing for a statement now? The questions that I have that are brought up and really more brought to light because of the staff report. And if that's all right, I'd like to hold this till staff has had the opportunity to comment on the project.
Fair enough.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Chairman, Ralph Gallagher is with us here. Ralph, I guess if you have any comments on what modifications are going to be made to the site as part of the plan, whether there's any significant change, for example, in the current drainage facilities or whatever. If you could do a brief comment to, again, address some of Joel's issues on how the site works.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Ralph Gallagher. I'm a licensed professional engineer. Did the engineering for the site plan. Based on the review, the staff review, we're going to have some parking changes. Now we're only required to have 15 or so parking places. We have 30 or more than 35, I think. But we're going to lose a few based on the staff report, and we understand that. We're going to move the loading dock area to where the parallel parking is, get rid of that. 2 comments for the price of 1 that we're going to lose some parking down by the dumpster area, but we'll still have sufficient parking for our use. All we plan to do, we don't plan to pave anything. We're just going to move the most northerly easterly corner of the parking lot. We're going to move the curb out about 3 or 4 feet to get it closer to the property line, so we have enough room between parking places based on the zoning regulations. The drainage, so I heard someone mention drainage. All of the soil in that area is bank run gravel, Hinckley gravelly, sandy loam, as far as you can dig, and it's worked well for many, many years. And we propose to clean out those dry well catch basins and make sure that they will continue to operate as they have. Utilities, all sewer, water, gas. We've gotten comments from Mr. Barone, who first he says everything is based on the state DOT, but then he goes into a bunch of comments that we have to question both he and the state on whether we need to improve everything in his report or just some things. So we have some work to do, but we'll be back with a modified site plan that addresses all the comments at the next hearing. But it's not going to look like it changed much at all, because it's existing parking lot. All right.
Thank you, Ralph. Just to get a comment following up on Ralph Gallagher's, we received late last night, early this morning, the report from Bob Barone, which we will address. But it's interesting. I think at the end of the day, the modifications that he's looking for are not significant to the site plan itself. It's just a question of addressing maybe some code issues with respect to the age of the sidewalks and things like that, which we will do. And the other issue on the staff report, there was a suggestion that we might have to remove the current drive-through cover, which exists on that site from its years as being a bank. It was originally, the drive-through was designed for the bank. The window has been effectively boarded up for years, and we'll continue to make sure it's tastefully boarded up. I'm not sure that we should have to remove the canopy. And I say that only because we don't own the building. And when our landlord comes back into possession at the end of the lease, it might be a bank again, for all I know. So we do realize that we agree with the staff report that sale of marijuana, sale of product from this facility cannot be done through a drive-through window. And we respect that. We have no intention of doing that, nor do we do that in our current location, obviously. But I'm hoping that we'll chat with the staff on ways not to knock down parts of the building that we may have to put back in at the end of the lease. Hope not to. The other interesting thing is on the parking lot itself. This is a pre-existing parking lot on an approved site plan. But the regulations now require landscaped islands that weren't required back then. So the question is, though we are changing the use of the building and from basically, let's say, a bank to a a medical marijuana dispensary. In reality, we're not the pre-existing non-conforming parking lot in any significant way. We're making a couple of very modest, basically striping and location changes. So I'm going to approach the staff to see if we can claim a pre-existing non-conforming status. I'm not sure that we can. It's an interesting question where the parking lot hasn't changed. It's a parking lot before, it's a parking lot today. And the reason I say that is that it has worked so successfully over the years, to my knowledge, as a parking lot without the landscaped islands, that we'd like to not lose the parking spaces if we don't have to, because parking spaces, are always a premium. So we'll address that. But if push comes to shove, as Ralph has said, the parking lot plan will be modified to conform to the more current regulation. But we'll reserve the right to address that. I haven't had a chance to talk to Jennifer or Sharon about it before. Other than that, on the staff report, most of the issues that we saw may require a little tweaking to the plan, but overall, we didn't see anything that struck us as being either too difficult to accomplish or would at all impact the use that we're proposing. At this point, the applicant really has nothing further to present, so we'd be happy to listen to the questions from both the commission and, of course, the public. So we'll rest here and turn it back over to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Attorney Marcus. I guess what I'll do is I'll ask if there's anyone else speaking in favor, opposition. Then, Joel, we can turn the floor over to you for your questions. So at this point, is there anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this application? Anyone else in favor? Is there anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this application? Mr. Rotello.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening. Paul Rotello for the record, 13 Linden Place, Danbury, Connecticut. I represent the 6th Ward in Danbury, which is technically across the street, but I consider this part of the 6th Ward as part of that Route 6 strip. I am in favor of this proposal and this petition. I'm familiar with the building. I'm familiar with the shopping area, what came before that, what it's being used for now. I don't think the parking issue either way is all that big of an issue. For me and for our constituents, for the petitioner, probably more spaces would be better. I am unfortunately a little bit disappointed that the petitioner was not able to get the drive-through aspect through zoning. I think if we've seen anything in the last 6 months, we realize that people, especially people who are ill, suffering from illnesses, probably want to get through their day with as little person-to-person contact as possible. And this is probably going to remain that way for the next several months or so. And people with compromised immune systems in general would probably want to do that. So I think it would be in the city's interest at some point to revisit the prohibition on drive-throughs. I don't know if that's necessarily a state statute or that's just a city ordinance, but be that as it may, I am still in favor of this project, and I hope it gets done expeditiously. I have a feeling, I'm not an epidemiologist or a doctor, but I have a feeling that some of these present COVID cases, as they turn into longer term maintenance cases, might find some help in medical marijuana. So the sooner that this can get through the process fairly and equitably, the better I'll feel. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Rotello. Is there anyone else? Sharon, I can't see everybody, so if I'm missing anyone, let me know. Is there anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this application? Who's that, Mr. Chianese?
Oh, Mr. Chianese's waving. Yeah.
Yes, I tried to raise my hand. I don't know if it actually went through.
I got your hand up now. Got it.
Okay, my name is Benjamin Chianese, 5 Briar Ridge Road. As with Councilman Paul Rotello, I also represent the 6th Ward on the City Council as well. As like Paul, I'm in favor of the proposal for the medical marijuana. Here, I have no objections to it, but I do have some questions, if I may. at least
Please.
present, because I do live in that neighborhood and I know some of the issues that could come up. Signage, I didn't see that anywhere in any of the reports regarding the signage that will be put up, whether or not it'll be a standalone sign or on the building, if that could be addressed at some point. And the other question would be on traffic, whether or not the traffic light that for Old Ridgeberry and Mill Plain will need to be adjusted to account for the additional cars coming out of the parking lot, whether they're making the left or right or to go straight. So those are just some questions I just want to put to the table. But again, I'm in favor of the proposal. Thank you.
Thanks, Ben. I'm trying to think if we should hold off on the signage and traffic signalization questions or address them now. Yeah, let me hold off on those. Ben, I got them written down, and we'll do all the questions in one shot. So let me,
That's fine.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this application? Anyone else in favor?
I would,
Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Councilman Farley Santos. I represent the fourth ward. I've been listening in. I was in the YouTube link, not the Zoom link up until now. But, I definitely see a benefit to having this in our city. We see it with the communities around us that may have it, other states that provide it. There definitely are individuals that I know personally that have conditions, medical conditions, that by using medical marijuana, they see a lot of relief. And therefore, I think this is something that would be wise for us to have for our residents and our constituents. And I'm publicly speaking in favor of it before all of you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to all of you.
Thank you for your comments. I see another person wishing, Mr. Molinaro, please.
Yes, thank you. I am a councilman from the 7th Ward, across the street from Paul Rotella. I have taken part in the Bethel marijuana dispensary, and I'm impressed by the amount of security that exists. They do a wonderful job. I'm a Parkinson patient, and I've benefited from it, and I think that many people in the Danbury area will benefit from this, and I'm looking forward to it being open. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Molinaro. Is there anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this application? Anyone else in favor? Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this application? Is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this application? Anyone in opposition? Anyone in opposition to this application? Okay, let's do it this way. Joel, I will turn the floor over to you, and then after your questions, we'll get back to Ben Chinese's questions about signage and traffic signals. So go ahead, Joel.
If it pleases the commission, I'd like to actually hold my questions back until staff has weighed in on this regarding their staff report.
Okay, fair enough. In that case, Attorney Marcus or anyone else, you heard Ben Chinese's questions about signage and traffic signalization, and I'll allow you the opportunity to respond.
Okay, for signage, I'm going to go back to Steve Hebrick. Can you tell what the current thinking is on signage?
Yes, the current thinking on signage is that we are permitted, my understanding is we're permitted to have one sign, one illuminated exterior sign, and we are proposing that to be the existing pylon sign that is there now on site, that we would utilize that sign. And then we would have no illuminated signage on the building.
Thank you. And on traffic light adjustment, Ralph, this may be something that we're going to call you on. We have a very relatively low volume traffic use with existing curb cuts in an existing commercial building. So the question is raised by Ben Chinese is, do we anticipate any need to adjust traffic lights?
No, again, for the record, Ralph Gallagher. The original site plan, if correct me if I'm wrong, was approved for something around 30, 35 spaces. And we only need 15. So we're about half of what was approved. And Mill Plain Road is not going to be affected by a few cars coming in and out of our parking space, especially if it's less than was approved prior. We're certainly able to handle any traffic coming in and out of there. We're not increasing the traffic. So I believe any traffic engineer would look at it and say, it's not an issue.
And again, just for Ben's edification, I think we're still waiting to hear from the city traffic engineer. Is that
Yes,
correct?
we are.
We have not gotten his review.
Or the city engineer.
Yeah,
Okay.
either one. So, well, so there may be more to be heard about that issue, but we anticipate no impact on existing flow of traffic or traffic directional signals or light. Thank you, Arnie.
Thank you. Thanks, Attorney Marcus. Before we move forward, Joel, I'm sorry, did you have a question for staff on their report, or do you want to wait till the next meeting? How do you want to work it? Did you have a question?
I have questions related to the staff report. I thought they were perhaps going to review their findings with us orally. If not, I'll jump in.
Go ahead.
All right. Back to the number of, well, we didn't talk about it. As best I recall, and things may have changed, there was a limit on the number of dispensaries that would be licensed within the state. Is that correct? Still,
Again, is that for the staff or for me?
that's for you.
Okay, well, I'm going to actually call on Carl Torella, who's I'm looking at on the screen here, who actually is the operational guy for D&B. So, Carl, why don't you address that question?
Hi, guys.
Identify
Hi, guys.
yourself for the record.
Yep, got this one down. Carl Torella, 7 Forest Ridge Road. I'm the general manager for Acreage Holdings in Connecticut. We operate 3 dispensaries within the state. To answer your question, Joel, yes, there's only 18 retail dispensaries or medical marijuana dispensaries within the state, increased from 6 since 2014. So they have no anticipation until the state goes recreational to further increase those licenses.
And this would be just a moving of the licensed facility that's in Bethel currently?
Yes, this is a licensed entity facility that would be moving from Bethel, Connecticut to Danbury, Connecticut. So it's just the same license holder, just moving locations.
So the 2 locations will not be in operation at the same time? That's
correct. There'll be a switch over at some date of choosing of opening of the new facility.
Okay. In the staff report, they talked about several encroachments on property owned by the Seventh-day Adventists. Are there easements in place for the use of their property, or has this been more of an adverse ownership type of an encroachment?
Hey, Joel, I'm going to try to field that one. I did the original site plan for that building when Tony Rizzo built it back in the probably late 70s, maybe early, it was late 70s, I think, early 80s. And we came across the cemetery, and there was a question as to where the cemetery was using this property and where the property was using the cemetery. The long and the short of all that is, in 1980, I'm looking at it here, in 1982, the Advent Christian Church of Danbury conveyed a portion of the property that it owned, approximately 4,630 square feet. And that is the parking area that appears to be on the cemetery. It is adjacent to the cemetery, but it's actually on property that was owned by Tony Rizzo and now JR Associates. So it was a good point for Jen to raise, a good catch that was not clear. But I think I provided her with the deeds, and I think that we're in compliance, because that original parking lot was, I believe, approved when the building was approved for the Union Trust Company. And actually, I remember that because I did the site plan for Tony at the time.
Thanks, Attorney Marcus.
Which
Jennifer, I'm sorry, did you want to add to that?
Not that satisfies your points.
I only want to start if Joel's finished with his line of questions.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
I said I only want to start if I don't want to interrupt. So if you want to continue, go ahead and I'll address Neil's answer to your question in my staff report after you're finished with your questions.
Okay, well, there's kind of boils me down to one left here. Some comment was made by the applicant that perhaps they're going to assert a prior conforming parking lot. And since this application is coming to us as a special exception, involves the entire building and property, I have a hard time, and I will have a hard time, I believe, being convinced that prior approvals of non-conforming facilities just won't fly on this project. You have to comply. It's just a new special exception, and in order to be approved as this special exception, you have to comply with regulations, not because a little piece of some prior approval was allowed. What we're looking at now is a different project. And as I believe I'm correct, when we give approval for a special exception, prior approvals are void as a general rule. So that's what I'm going to be listening for as this process goes on. That's it.
Thanks, Joel. Jennifer, why don't you go ahead?
Okay, Mr. Chairman, thank you. To respond to Joel's line of questions and Neil's response, with respect to that the rear area that looks like it's owned by the church, the survey provided by the applicant, the A2 survey, shows it as being owned by the Second Advent Christian Church. So that's where my staff report starts, and city tax records show it being owned by the church. So if that's changed, and Neil did send me the quitclaim deed, that needs to be represented on the survey. There's no references to volume and pages. It just appeared. You will certainly need to reconcile that on the site plan. And with respect to, again, my staff report for that rear area, there is no approvals for that. If you go back to the 1981 approval, it only shows the portion of the parking lot as shown on the site plan as the property line. That's where the approval stops. So at whatever point the property owner continued adding parking in the back, that doesn't have any city approvals. That's what I'm asking to bring into compliance, because that doesn't have approvals. So that will need to be resolved. And again, the parallel parking spaces, those are new. That's not non-conforming. That does require compliance with the zoning regulations. Anything new shown on that site plan is required to comply with zoning regulations, or anything that was built that didn't have previous approvals needs to be brought into compliance.
Jen, if I can address that, I agree with you 100%. Don't let that out to general public knowledge, but I'm saying it publicly here, I guess. But I agree with you 100%. And interestingly enough, as I say, I got this thing approved originally. And I recall that I had to go to the church. I actually had to figure out from this 1902 cemetery who the current owner was in the late 70s, 81, early 81. And in the Advent Christian Church, for those of you who want to know where it is on Madison Avenue in Danbury. It's the church right on that Madison Avenue bridge area that takes you from North Street over to 84. anyway, I found that they were actually the successor in title, and I went to them and I got an easement from them. I only needed an easement for the site plan that we did back then. And now that I'm looking at this, I was as surprised as maybe you were to see that how it is shown on the map. This is a 1982 deed. So the deed came in after the site plan. And quite honestly, I didn't even feel too stupid because I see from the lawyers who were involved in this that Dick Nally was apparently representing the Rizzo family, and Tom West, Judge West, in private practice back then, was representing the church. So obviously, this was completely outside of my frame of knowledge. Not that that surprises anybody, because there's a lot of stuff that falls in that category. But the fact of the matter is, I agree with you 100%. Now that we know that this land appears to have been acquired post site plan approval, we've got to address it differently, and we will. That certainly was not something that was intentional. And as I said in my early remarks, it was a good catch by you, because it was. Thanks.
Thank you for that clarification. Jennifer, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a couple more things as it applies to my staff report and some clarifications. We are still waiting for the city traffic engineer for his comments. I've talked to him a few times, and he does have some concerns about access, and I brought it up as well with respect to the angled parking and the two-way directional aisle through there. If anyone visiting the site uses those angled parking spaces, they're not going to be able to come out the way they came, obviously. So they're going to have to go around the building. Well, what happens? You know, it's just an odd circulation pattern. So you're either going to have 90-degree or make it one way. And I don't know that the traffic engineer wants that one way either. So there are further discussions about that, about the directional, the angled parking through there. Again, the 1981 approval shows it as a standard 90-degree angle parking with, I believe it's a 20-foot aisle width, which at the time, that's what it was approved for. So, you know, I'd certainly have to talk to Sean Harity about continuing the nonconformity. But again, the angled parking presents an issue for circulation. And that's one of the things that I'm talking to Abdul about. There is some concern about right turns. Concerns about left turns, given the high volume of traffic along Mill Plain Road. And correct me if I'm wrong, there is no signal head on your portion of the property. That's the intersection goes along Mill Plain and then Old Ridgeberry. There is no signal head on the applicant's property, on the property owner, on that property. So again, any exiting is an issue. Again, and I understand that that's been, you know, it's been a use that's since the 80s, but Mill Plain Road has changed over time. And again, the traffic engineer will be addressing that. I at least wanted to let the commission know that staff is talking to the traffic engineer, and there are some issues that he is concerned about. With respect to signage, I just wanted to clarify, the Planning Commission doesn't approve the signage. That's actually approved through a zoning permit with the zoning enforcement officer, and compliance is determined by the zoning enforcement officer. And my last point, given the direction, and again, this may end up changing, and I don't know where the new loading zone is going to be, but given the location of what I think Ralph told me where the parallel parking spaces are, how is a truck going to get out of the site given the location of the canopy?
Well, it would, we're not saying that we want to prohibit the truck from, oh, you think the truck can't get past the canopy?
Yeah, I mean, again, in my staff report, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, in my staff report, I'd asked what types of trucks will be delivering. Right. Again, it was previously a bank. A bank doesn't take deliveries. This use right. does have deliveries. So you have to provide adequate loading, and you have to let the commission know what type of truck will be utilizing that. And I see
Well,
that
that's-
kind of being an obstruction.
Right, well, that's originally why we had it out front, but that's not gonna work. So
No.
we do need to find out the size of the trucks. The staff report's absolutely correct. If the size of the truck won't fit under the canopy, then we're gonna have to do something with the canopy. But just to elaborate on a little bit what you said before, those angle parking places I think are needed because we assumed that we were gonna have a one-way in and out. Because 90 degrees doesn't quite work with our building. You don't have enough room to back out without hitting the building. And we do have a walkway coming up through there because the people have to get up to the front door. So we can't have 90-degree parking there because we won't have a walk and people will hit the building.
Can you show, I'm sorry, Steve, I'm sorry, Ralph. Stephen, can you share that site plan so the commission can see it?
Can I ask a question before we do that? We don't have our traffic engineer's report yet.
No,
And
not yet.
It's a good idea to debate traffic and circulation without even the report from our own traffic engineer yet. I mean, if the commission wants to, we can, but in the absence of a report, we're going to be doing this all over again when we have the report for the next meeting. If we can continue the public hearing, get our traffic engineer's report, that might be a better time to discuss that. But I'll leave it open to the commission.
You already, if I can jump on your comment, I agree with you. I mean, the issue's been raised, the concerns.
Yeah.
We're going to hear more from Abdul. I tend to agree that we're going to just go over this again at the next continued meeting.
Yeah.
So I'm
That's
happy
right.
to defer further discussion. Note that you've raised the issue. We're aware of it. Abdul may have other issues and we'll address them for the next meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I concur.
Yes. Go ahead, Joel.
I concur. It's fine. Let's defer it till Abdul has an opportunity to weigh in.
Absolutely.
I appreciate that. All right, good. Jen, I'm sorry, was there anything else you wanted? I'm sorry, Mr. Kyokyo, are you looking to comment?
I have a couple of questions if Jen is done after she's
Go
done.
ahead.
Okay, go ahead, Bill. Go ahead, Bob.
Okay. I would like just kind of describe, I'm going to rattle off a litany of comments and questions, and then I'll let you kind of answer it because it's all related. So if you could, I think it would benefit some of the other commission members and everyone on this call. If you can kind of describe in general, the operations there, kind of how the customers enter and how they interact with the staff, kind of go through the security measures to get into the building. And then are there other activities other than a dispensary? Because I think, if I'm not mistaken, the one in Bethel used to have like Reiki and potentially other like wellness activities there. Kind of generally, how many employees are there? How many customers kind of come through there in a day generally, if there's a peak time? And, if the hours of operations are changing from kind of what the Bethel operation has today.
So I'll take that, Carl Terrell again. So basically, I guess, Stephen, maybe you want to bring up the site plan and I can just kind of show them or the interior
Sure.
design. I can show them the flow of the patients. But obviously the number one, first and foremost priority of mine is ensuring the safety of my employees and the patients. And that's why we're moving first and foremost. So basically your first corridor is you're coming up the side of the building as your patient, as you're parking, you come to this security lobby here. There's a little vestibule. It's kind of like a man trap. So basically you have to put up your ID to get into the building, which will be buzzed in by a security person behind the desk, which has a window right there. You will show your ID and your medical marijuana card to that security person. They'll check the government website to make sure that you're a real patient. You're still on the patient list for our facility. Once we do all the verifications in terms of compliance, that patient will be allowed into the facility. Right now, I mean, obviously it's COVID era, so we've scheduled the inside retail space to have seats 6 feet apart, obviously, for flow of our patients. This might change a little bit when it goes back to normal in terms of interior design. We'll have more people within the waiting room. Once they're inside their waiting room, they will take a seat. They're checked into the BioTrack by the security person. Our dispensary technicians who are behind the counter will see them checked in. So they basically, you have patient 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the queue. They'll be serviced in that order if their orders are ready at that time. The dispensary technicians will work on their orders behind the counter and or go to the vault where the product will be stored. And their pre-orders will be stored. Their pre-orders will be taken to their point of sale system, which is this L-shaped counter. So they'll be called up to that counter when they're ready. Once they're ready, they will check the order. The dispensary technicians will take the product out of the bag, work with the pharmacist behind the counter to recheck their order in terms of quality and assurance. Once everything's checked, they will pay. And then once they pay, they go out through that second door on the exit here, which is the entrance. There'll be a stanchion between so that the entrance and exit patients aren't kind of overlapping each other in terms of just knocking into each other and whatnot. And then they'll exit the facility and obviously go back to their car. And my envision, similar to our other facilities in the state, they'll do the one way around the facility in order to get out and into the street.
Carl, it's Neil. On the questions, number of customers, number of employees. What do you?
Yep, sure. Sorry about that, Bob. I forgot about that part. So it's about 15 to 20 employees. And then on a given day, it could be 200 people, 200 patients per day. On a crazy busy day, a holiday, it could be 250 upwards to maybe 300, depending on the outliers of the day. Obviously, the same hours of operations will continue. We don't foresee anything changing in terms of hours of operations. And then obviously, we want as much parking as possible because that would be best for our patients, right? So we don't want the cluster and people trying to find parking if there's no parking at busy times and things like that. We do plan, as a manager, do plan to kind of look for additional parking for our employees nearby in terms of trying to rent out spaces or sublet parking to get additional parking for our facility, just to give the best experience for our patients when they're on site.
Bob, does that answer?
Yeah, well, there was one other point. Was any other wellness activities there? Was I mistaken that there was Reiki or something at the other location?
Yeah, so that was a long time ago, probably 4 or 5 years ago when they did that. I mean, we do have the upstairs. I mean, we do patient support groups. We do educational support groups, educational things with our pharmacists to really educate the facility. It doesn't need to be patients. It could be open to the public. Until maybe it goes recreational, we plan to use that upstairs portion as kind of an event space if COVID allows it. Right now, we're doing virtual support groups, virtual educational videos, all of that stuff to really help the program just kind of get more educational process in the background. So and really just put ourselves out there and answer any questions that may be about the medical marijuana program within Connecticut.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Bob.
Commission members, any other questions for the applicant at this time? Perry?
Just a comment that my primary concerns had to do with the two-way versus the angled parking and the left exit versus the signaling. So I'm glad Jen brought those up and I look forward to hearing more, but those were my primary concerns.
Thank you, and we do look forward to our traffic engineer's report on that matter. Is there any additional questions for the applicant at this time?
Mr. Chairman, Councilman Chinis has his hand raised, but I don't know if he has still a question or it's just a leftover. Oh,
Ben?
It's gone.
Oh.
Okay. I think
Okay, good.
I don't see anything else, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Commission members, if there's no further questions or discussion at this time, as Jennifer mentioned, we're not in a position to close this public hearing, so I will entertain a motion to continue.
I'll make that motion to continue.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded to continue this public hearing. Is there any discussion?
Yes.
Go ahead, Joel.
Just so it's out there, because we're going to be talking about traffic next time around. I don't think the numbers I heard about patients in and out. That's not going to trigger a requirement for a traffic analysis. We're not going to have to do that for this project, are we? I'm just throwing it out. That's a question. Doesn't have to be answered today. This just a general puzzlement. I keep hearing the employees referred to, or some of them, as pharmacists, and they may well be, but I seem to recall, and man, I remember getting weak on this, that this cannot be done, distribution cannot be done in a pharmacy because it's still, I think it's a Schedule I drug that's not approved by the feds, and you could lose your pharmacy license. I don't know that the pharmacist would lose their license, but this is not a pharmacy, correct? It's just a distribution facility.
Technically by the state, again, this is Carl Terrell, technically by the state, it's not recognized as a pharmacy. We do have pharmacists on staff. So they are registered pharmacists and required by the DCP, which is the Department of Consumer Protection within the state, to have a ratio of, to have a pharmacist on site at all times when we distribute our product. And also to have pharmacists ratio to dispensary technicians of 1 to 3 on staff. So we need registered pharmacists on staff.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Jennifer, go ahead.
Just to clarify Joel's question, I can talk to Abdul about the trip generation. Again, this didn't trip our trip multiplier, but he is looking at about how those trips enter the site and circulate through. So, but I'll double check with him. You know, if he would have wanted a traffic report, he would have mentioned that to me. But right now, per the regulations, it is not a trip generator.
Good, thank you. I was hoping.
Okay, there has been a motion and a second to continue this public hearing. I will take a roll call vote. Again, a yes is to continue the public hearing, a no is to not continue the public hearing. Mr. Urice.
Yes.
Mr. Chiocchio.
Yes.
Mr. Salvain.
Yes.
And Chairman Finaldi votes yes. This matter will be continued until our next public hearing. This public hearing will be continued until our next regularly scheduled meeting. Okay, it's 8:40 according to my clock. Let's take a 5-minute break and reconvene at 8:45, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you.
FYI, everybody, we're still live on YouTube and we are recording. You're all set, Mr. Chairman. I think everybody's back. Oh, you're muted. You're muted.
My bad. Sorry
There you
about that.
go. Okay.
Okay, let's call the meeting back to order at 8:45 PM. We will move right to item 2 under public hearings. Danbury Mall LLC. Application for revised special exception, revised site plan approval to amend previous approval for trip generation over 500 vehicle trips per day and add fast food restaurant with drive-through use to previously approved restaurant Shake Shack in the CG20 Zone 7 Bacchus Avenue, F17002, F16014, F16015, F17014, and F17015, special exception number 771. Again, I'll read the legal notice. Applications to be heard by the Planning Commission at public hearing in a web-based meeting hosted on Zoom on December 2nd, 2020, 7:30 PM. Agenda to be posted will include instructions to access the Zoom meeting and application materials pursuant to Executive Order 71, Section 19C. Notice is hereby given that the following applications will be heard. Number 2, Danbury Mall LLC, application for revised special exception, revised site plan approval to amend previous approval for trip generation over 500 vehicle trips per day and add fast food restaurant with drive-through use to previously approved restaurant Shake Shack in the CG20 Zone, 7 Bacchus Avenue. I'll skip reading the numbers, the lot numbers. Special exception 771, Arnold E. Finaldi Jr. Chairman, posted on city website and sent to town clerk and city website on November 19th, 2020. Commission members, all the previous information for this application was distributed. Hopefully everybody had an opportunity to review that. And with that, I will ask, is there anyone wishing to speak in favor of this application?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Attorney Beecher.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening and good evening, commissioners. My name is Tom Beecher and I'm from the Collins Hannafin Law Firm, and I represent Danbury Mall LLC, which is the property owner as well as the applicant in this matter. On our team present tonight are Tony Farmer, who's an Assistant Vice President, Property Development for the property owner. Justin Garrison, who's an Assistant Vice President of Pre-Construction Operations for the property owner. Maura Ruby, who's the Senior Manager, Property Management, whose office is at the Danbury Mall. Paul Vitaliano, who's the project engineer from VHB for this project. Joe Balskus, who's the Director of Transportation Systems with VHB, and he's the traffic engineer on this project. Samantha Goodman, an architectural designer from Bergman Architectural Firm, and she'll go through the design changes for this particular building for Shake Shack. And last but not least, Allison Tomadezo is the Senior Design Manager at Shake Shack. All of you here were here almost exactly a year ago when this project was previously approved for the 2 restaurants in this particular location of the mall. So this is really deja vu all over again to a degree. We're here tonight for approval of a special exception for trip generation and a drive-through restaurant driven, no pun intended, by a business plan decision by Shake Shack to add a pickup lane for the restaurant. The application involves both restaurants as a package deal, since this is a revision of that prior special exception, and therefore both restaurants need to be included in this particular application. But there are no changes to the Longhorns restaurant itself, which is restaurant number 2 on the plans. As I said to you in my cover letter with this application, within just a few short months after that approval that you granted back in December of 2019, the world, the nation, and the city of Danbury were all faced with the onset of COVID-19, the pandemic. With that, particularly the restaurant businesses have been faced with analyzing and revisiting their business plans. So for this particular site, Shake Shack has determined that it would now like to offer a drive-through mobile pickup lane, or simply put, a pickup lane. Now, pickup lanes are actually a concept that has been growing since prior to the pandemic. If you all recall, I was part of the development team that presented the Chipotle's restaurant over on Newtown Road. That project also had a pickup lane, which Chipotle's called the Chipotlane. Very clever on their part. We're not so clever here tonight with our own special name, but simply put, pickup lanes are something that are growing. But by zoning definition, a drive-through is a drive-through. But this is not your typical drive-through. There is no separate menu board. There's no ordering station for this pickup lane. The window is purely for pickup. People will use an app to place their food orders and they'll pay in advance. Then they just drive through to pick up their order. Logically, this will be a significantly shorter queue line and queue time because people won't be separately looking at a menu board, separately making an order, and then driving to the next stop to actually get their food. There will be no second stop. There will be no menu board. There will be no ordering. This is one stop, pickup only. The cars will move quickly through because everyone has already ordered and paid. And Joe Balskas is here and he can give you more detail on this aspect of the project. With the addition of a pickup lane, Shake Shack now fits within the definition of a fast food restaurant and is therefore a special exception use pursuant to sections 3E8 and 5A2B of the regulations. And since this application will supersede the prior grant of special exception, as I said before, Longhorns is part of this application. But again, as I said, there's no changes to the Longhorns restaurant itself. And both restaurants collectively are, once again, trip generators, also necessitating your special exception review. Our goal collectively tonight is to just review the differences between this particular proposal and the prior application and show you that the changes that we're proposing tonight do not have an impact, have no significant impact on anything at all. Joe Balskas will explain to you that the change to the traffic counts are not significant at all. The Shake Shack building and patio have been increased by a total of just 127 square feet. We have also revised our plan this afternoon in reaction to and hopefully to satisfy the comments submitted by Jennifer in her staff report. But with that, this is probably a good time for me to turn it over to Paul. Paul will go through the plans. After Paul, Joe Balskas will fill you in on the traffic report. And then after Joe, Samantha Goodman will talk about the building design. So Paul, go ahead.
Thank you, Tom. For the record, my name is Paul Vitaliano. I'm a civil engineer with VHB in Wethersfield, Connecticut. If I could share my screen, I'd like to just show you some of our presentation graphics on the site plan and help explain what the changes are.
You should be good to go.
Great, thank you. Okay, so everyone should be seeing just an aerial of the mall. Very quickly, just to, I know everyone knows where this is, but once again, we're the empty parking lot right here, right off the main entrance. And just for some points of reference, as we're going to be talking throughout the night, this is what we're going to refer to as the ring road, and this will be the main entrance. And our project is confined to this parking area. So I'm just going to slide this out of the way. And I would like to call your attention to the original plan that was submitted, approved last year. And the reason I want to do that is just kind of show you how minor these changes are, but also just kind of remind you of where we left off. As Tom mentioned, there's no changes to the Longhorn, which is Restaurant 2. Our focus is on the Shake Shack, which is Restaurant 1. So for the most part, everything to the right of this demarcation here has not changed. But I do want to call attention to some specific features because they'll be relevant as we look at the changes. You might recall that the Shake Shack was basically up against the mall entrance here with basically landscaping between the mall entrance and the building. There was a patio on this side. There were also parking spaces along here, which will be eliminated. I'll show you in a moment. the loading and the dumpsters, these are the dumpsters here, and the loading zone was here, and these were a dead end, because obviously now with the lane they are not, but these were previously a dead end. We also were proposing a bus stop over in this location on the eastern side of the site, and there have been some changes there too. So I wanted to point that out on this plan, and we could refer back to this plan if there's any questions. So now I'm going to slide over to the current plan. And as was mentioned, the building is slightly larger, only 127 square feet. The shape of it's a little different. The architecture is very different, and the architects will speak to that later. The seat count has increased by 4. And the building, because of its change in shape, is basically moved to the east approximately 8 feet in this location. This corner is 8 feet more to the east. This corner is about 10 feet more to the east. With the elimination of those parking spaces that I mentioned here, basically the changes are confined to this location. So there were no changes to the rest of the parking lot, just the elimination of these 9. And also these rows here extended to the west by 1 parking space. So the mobile app pickup lane, I do have to correct Tom. We do have a catchy name. It's called Shack Tracks. So that's what our catchy name is, and that lane will be located here. So basically, you would enter the site as previously was approved to enter, and you would circulate the building in this direction here, and the pickup window is located right here. Then you would continue out, and you're back in the main parking field as you were previously. We could probably talk about this later, or some other folks that from Shake Shack could explain in more detail. But as was mentioned, the app is something where you place your order, and then you receive a notification that your order is ready. So that's when you enter the lane. So you're not there waiting. As was mentioned, you're not looking at the menu boards or things of that nature. There is also an option with the app to park and pick it up inside. You have that option when you get notification that your order is ready. You could make that selection. The other change, obviously, the dumpsters had to move because now we do have the circulation around the building, so they were pushed up further north here, and the loading was also moved here in this location. You might recall, if you've been out there, that there's the Tesla charging station equipment here and a transformer. We're still within the same limits of pavement that we were before here. We did stretch out just by a few feet in this direction. We still have the landscape buffer between us and the main entrance. In doing that, we did lose parking spaces within the main field. There used to be, it was 127, and now there's 112. So there's a loss of 15 in that location. And the other thing I mentioned before was the bus stop. You can see in this location, we've changed just a little bit. There were some drainage issues that are being created by the way we had added the curbing before, so we had to correct that. We had to allow for the sheet flow to flow through here, and also we did work with the transit authority to better work with them on what they would like to see. And basically, this striped area is where the bus would pull up in here, off of the main travel route, and there is a bus shelter here. I'm going to avoid zooming in just because it might take a while to regenerate the image, but there's a bus stop here. We have continued sidewalk access and ADA access through here to get to that bus shelter. We did make some minor changes today, as was mentioned, based on planning comments. I do want, first of all, to thank Jennifer and the planning staff for providing these comments so quickly. We submitted, and through the holidays they reviewed it. We do appreciate that. Also to Kelly Green for providing engineering letters stating that there's no objection to the changes. A couple of items that we had proposed that you see on this plan are a striped island here with the no left turn sign here. What was intended was Longhorn, this tenant, wanted to make sure that vehicles were not traveling around their front. Planning staff had concerns with this, and we acknowledged those concerns, so this is actually being eliminated. So this striping and restriction on the no left turn is actually no longer proposed. There was actually one other change that Longhorn suggested and we accommodated, was putting basically a speed table in this location. So there was always a crosswalk here to join the sidewalk, if you might recall, that connected the two buildings and ultimately connected it to the right of way all the way this way. But this speed table basically allows the pavement in a concrete ramp to ramp up to that crosswalk and then come down. So it's traffic calming measure at that point. And really, before I hand it over to Joe for traffic, I just want to point out a couple of house cleaning items. We did resubmit to the FAA. Even though the building shifted only about 6 feet, we did want to resubmit that. We're waiting to hear back. We expect that there won't be an issue, especially since the building is actually shorter than it was before. It used to be 22 feet. Now it's actually 18 foot 8 inches. The equipment on top of it does bring it up to 21 foot 4 inches, but which is still lower than the 22 was previously. Also, 2 light poles shifted slightly. And just to make sure we had all our I's dotted and T's crossed, we did resubmit to the FAA for those 2 light poles as well. Also in the drainage report, I know this gets dealt with at a later time, but the compensatory flood storage calculations are included there as well, basically to demonstrate that we are not going to be reducing storage in the floodplain, which is depicted by this red line. The elevations to the building and surrounding areas were not changed. So that's basically it when it comes to the site plan. I could either take questions now, or Mr. Chairman, however you'd like to handle that, or I could hand it over to Joe for traffic.
Let's go right to Joe, and I'll ask my fellow commission members to just jot down their questions and hold them till all the presenters are done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I probably won't go to my slide. All right, so good evening for the record. Joe Balskis, traffic engineer with VHB. And obviously, as Tom said, deja vu, that was for tonight. So minor change in the traffic, as you can expect. We have a small increase in the building size. And we have the pickup lane, driver lanes, we're calling it. So what do we do about that for traffic generation? Because it is unique, as Tom said and Paul said, and it is fairly new in terms of it's not a formal drive-through, it's a pickup lane. And there's not a lot of them out there. So we actually looked nationally. We first looked at the Shake Shack. They don't have any yet. We looked nationally, and we found one location that has it in Texas. And we talked to them about how they're doing it and it's different situation, different location. So not a lot of information. So what do? So we basically said, you know what? Let's just assume this is a formal drive-through with order and pickup. All right, let's do a traffic analysis of, let's assume that, okay, it's a fast food with formal drive-through. What are those numbers? What do they mean in terms of the site? And so that's what we did. And we thought that was the best scenario in terms of an impact assessment. So what does that mean? Paul, can you show more the slide? I don't know if it's not, is it me not showing it? Is it?
No.
Okay. All right. So what does that mean? All right. So in terms of generation, we're adding, 17 cars in the afternoon, 6 in the Saturday midday peak hour. So it's a minuscule increase, going from the fast food with the fast food drive-through. I thought it'd be actually higher myself, to be honest with you, but it's not. And at this size and this use, we're not talking about a significant increase in the traffic generation by assuming it's a formal drive-through with order and pickup. And as Tom said, we're not going to have a McDonald's type of drive-through lane or Dunkin' Donuts. This is a pickup lane, very well organized, very well managed on your app. Even if you were to get in the lane because you're anticipating orders ready, they're gonna flag you through. So it's not something that you're gonna be queued up making your order with 3 kids in the car and a dog barking and trying to order 3 Big Macs. It's nothing like that at all. It's basically pulling up because you got your signal to your app that your order's ready. You pull up in your car, you pick up from the window, and you go. No payment, nothing. You're just picking up and showing that's your order, and you're good to go. So what does that all mean? We looked at the traffic study. We redid the traffic study. We looked at the numbers. We did the traffic volume figures. We did the generation tables. We did the analysis, and it doesn't change anything for most. I mean, there were some small, minuscule increases in delays. 2 seconds, a small increase in queuing, 1 car at the Bacchus Avenue intersection. but nothing that says that this is a problem and we need to reevaluate the intersection and the improvements that we've already agreed upon with Abdul. So the bottom line is that there's really no change in traffic operations, and the study conclusions from last year are the same conclusions that we have this year in terms of the improvements that we are proposing to provide to support the application. And that's my presentation. Short and sweet, Joel.
Thanks, Joe.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, before Tom hands it over to our architect, may I make one minor point I forgot to make?
Sure.
This might take a while to load. There was one other staff comment in the planner's report, and that was here at the bus stop location. You can see this striped island here. By code, we were asked to make that a landscaped island. We are able to accommodate more than half of the island as landscape so that it could accommodate a tree and meet that zoning requirement.
Thank you for that clarification.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, next, Samantha Goodwin, the architect, is going to speak.
Please. She might be muted.
I am muted. Hi, Samantha Goodman from Bergmeyer, the architect. And the first thing that we wanted to show you was what the existing or the approved Shake Shack from last year looked like. And then we could show you what the redesign looks like. So this is what was presented last year, if you don't remember. And then I'm going to switch over to what the proposed looks like. So when Shake Shack reached out to us about this new Shack Track mobile pickup format, we decided to take a look at the design that was proposed last year, and we landed on a more simplified, modern, and sleek building design. We were really looking at using a timeless color palette, and the design was using two intersecting volumes, as you can see, where one has a clear story. The thought is to bring in a lot of natural light and have a more inviting exterior that really pulls you into the space, and you can kind of see a lot of the activity without having too much of a busy looking exterior. So as what was mentioned before, we have the main entry on this side with parking and a patio all the way on the right side of the building that wraps around a little bit on the front. And as we rotate to the back, you can see again the two intersecting volumes, lots of natural light into the space. And this is that other patio. And then we can rotate around the back of the building and then to the pickup area. Allison, do you want to add anything that I might have missed?
Hi guys, this is Allison Palmadesso from Shake Shack. No, I think you covered it, Sam.
So does anyone have any questions on the exterior?
Questions, commission members for Samantha at this time? I guess not.
The drive-through would be on the left as we're looking at that photo.
Yes.
And is the patio any different size than previously?
I believe it might be a tiny bit bigger. I know before in the previous design, it extended all the way on the back side. What we decided to do with this design is we have the patio located here on the side, but then also wrapping around the front.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, that is all that we're presenting this evening. I think we've covered the changes as I promised early on to cover what the changes were between this particular proposal and the one that was approved last year. I mean, just to wrap up our side for tonight, we believe that the site plan complies with the zoning regulations and that this application also meets your special exception standards. And I think, you can easily find once again that this modified project design is still compatible with the neighborhood and this commercial area. There's no significant traffic changes, no congestion issues associated with this revised plan. So, and obviously there's no public health, safety, or welfare issues that would result from these changes. So we thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Attorney Beecher. Commission members, what I'll do is I'll ask if there's anyone else speaking in favor. I'll call the opposition, and then we can ask whatever questions we have. Is there anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this application? Anyone else in favor? Is there anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this application? Is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this application? Anyone in opposition? Is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this application? Hearing none, commission members, questions at this time? Mr. Chiocchia.
Question is about queuing into the pickup lane, if you will. I know that it's not going to be set up for ordering, and it's just pickup only. And maybe this is for Joe, partially for Joe. How many cars could queue up there, given if there's a fair amount of ordering volume and orders are ready at a very similar time? If everybody gets their notice, hey, you were ready, and get there, it seems as though there could be quite a few cars that could, even though they're not ordering, their order is ready, and so there's some queuing going on there, and it's been exacerbated, over the summer through a lot of just pickup, and you can see it, in Chick-fil-A up in Brookfield, where they're out into to Federal Road and Wendy's, and while they're ordering there, and I understand this isn't, Chick-fil-A is a pretty quick one, so but their queuing is quite substantial, and there's a couple of lanes there. So I'm still concerned that there's going to be a lot of queuing going into the parking area. And then the other question would be, if someone is waiting to be notified and they're parked into the parking lot ready to go into the pickup lane, is there enough parking spaces there to accommodate that as well? So I guess is there sufficient parking, and then the queuing are the big concerns I have.
Yeah, so good questions. Good question. So the one location that we found in Texas that we found that was actually doing this, it wasn't a Shake Shack, it was another restaurant, it was doing a pickup lane. They are saying, and we talked to the traffic engineer that did that site, 4 to 6 cars in the queue is the max queue they saw. So I can't tell you that we have an exact calculation of the queuing for this. I can't, because we don't have the data. But I can certainly tell you that it's not going to be like a drive-through, like a Chick-fil-A, as you mentioned. It's going to be less than that. And the way this app works is that it's pretty efficient. You pick up your order, you're gone, and it's pretty quick. I don't have the time, how many seconds it's going to be, but I can assure you that it's not going to be a queue that's going to back up into the parking lot, back up onto the ring road, and back on the back of 7. It's nothing like that. I don't have the count for you. I think we had like 8 cars we can stack there, Paul. Was the plan show that? I think it was like 8 cars. So I'm, again, hearing that one site in Texas had 4 to 6 cars, the max they saw, and the site that we have, and how the pickup lane leads into its own drive, if you will, coming into it. I'm confident that we're not going to see a queuing that you see at a Chick-fil-A with their chicken sandwiches or Dunkin' Donuts in the morning. We're not going to see that, because it's a pretty efficient operation in terms of mobile pickup. Number one. Number two, I have seen many pickup parking spots for many different uses, whether it's for a restaurant or a Home Depot, you name it. I have never seen any of those pickup spots myself full. You go to a Lowe's or Home Depot, or even restaurants that have pickup lanes. I have rarely seen all those pickup spots in the parking lot full that they have a problem with. In fact, usually they're empty. That's my own observation that I've seen. So I can't say that we're gonna have we're gonna have 5 cars in the queue and 5 cars in the park. I can't say it. We don't have data, but I can assure you that the pickup operation in the pickup lane is very efficient. That all you're doing is picking up and you're going. And I'll tell you, if there is a problem they will flag that vehicle through and have them park in the parking lot and deal with that issue and you know, afterwards. They're not going to clog the pickup lane. They want to make it as efficient as possible so that people use it. And that's the whole intent here. Is it going to drive more sales? Hopefully it'll drive more sales. But you know, we do not see any information that we have that indicates that this is going to be anything. It won't be like a drive-through. It won't be that. But nothing we've seen so far is telling us that there's a potential issue here with it being a significant backup in the pickup lane. And if we were along White Street with a direct driveway, maybe a little concerned. But we've got a parking lot, we've got a ring road that lead into it. That I'm very confident as a traffic engineer that we're not going to have problems with it as laid out.
You know, I'd like to just add to that. The fact is that there's 152 available parking spaces in this for both restaurants. We're only required to have 131. So we have a surplus above and beyond what's required by the regulations. And if you look at the plan, the bulk of the parking spaces, 112 of them, are over on the Shake Shack side of things. There's just 40 over on the Longhorns east side lot. So I think in terms of any concern about parking and waiting until you get the signal from Shake Shack to come through the window, I think we've got more than enough parking for that to take place.
It's a good question, Bob. It is a good question, but we're very confident with what we've laid out here that we can accommodate between the parking, as Tom mentioned, and you know, it came down to the parking in the mall across the street. We had to, but we don't see that happening. We really don't. We think it's gonna be a very efficient operation. And you know, I'm telling you what we found. There's not a lot out there, but we're also not hearing that there's been problems with the site that had it in Texas.
As far as the, I think you said 8 cars in the queue, does that, how far back does that go? So it goes along where the window is, along that side of the building, and then is that completely would go the other side of the building as well? So basically 2 sides of the building would?
Yes.
So anything more than that would kind of go into the parking lot area, I guess, right? Okay. I'm just very skeptical that I just think that there's going to be more than 8 cars in the queue there, particularly at peak times. I think that's all anybody wants to do now is do the pickup and go through a drive-through. And you know, I understand it's going to be, you know, there's no ordering. It's going to be efficient. I understand that, and I think, you know, it's definitely going to be a lot quicker getting through there. I think that in probably particularly in the beginning, when this is a new concept, you know, everybody loves Shake Shack, and people are going to flock there. And I think that queuing is going to be an issue in the beginning, and hopefully not much after that, but I'm a little bit skeptical.
Yeah, understood. And you know, like I said, we did our research, and yes, new stores, the new restaurant open, we're going to see it, but very confident that we have storage on site. And you know, if it is a highly successful opening, then we'll have the ring road. We have the ring road. So we have the site. You know, we have non-city roadway to accommodate this potentially peak of new Shake Shack in town. Everyone's coming to it, and there's new app. That's at the possibility any new restaurant that comes to town. But after that happens, it settles down, which is what we look for. We don't design for Christmas, as we know, Christmas traffic. We don't design for that. So yeah, after that happens, we think it's going to settle down. But even so, we have enough storage on site and on the ring road if we had to, that we could accommodate that. So we don't back up onto the entrance and onto Bacchus Avenue and onto the highway. That's obviously the major concern. And I will tell you this too: we have to go back to OSTA for a revision. We have to revise our application with OSTA. So if there's any, you know, I guess I'm off like a backstop to your skepticism, which at OSTA, but they're going to do the same thing we did. They're going to look and say, where else is this happening? They're going to probably call the same people in Texas that have an opening, and probably do the same thing that we've done, which is fine. But my point here is that you have a backstop with OSTA. They have to approve this as well for revision to the application.
I mean,
One thing.
Just a second, Allison. We'll get you right in there. You know, one thing that I've observed is that there was a new Sonic that was built up in New Milford on the corner of Still River Drive and Route 202. For the first 3 weeks, there was a long queue line for that. After that, you didn't even notice there was a queue line anymore. And that's just exactly what Joe was just referring to is that, sure, at the very grand opening, everybody wants to try it, but after a while, then the restaurants hopefully continue.
Yeah, but our site is tucked away in the mall. So it's not like we're right on 202 or right on Backus Avenue. We've got a buffer of storage in our parking lot as well as the ring road and the mall controls that, and the mall obviously is going to want to make it as efficient as possible. So I'm very comfortable with what we've got and what we've seen for research other sites. So I think we have a good buffer between Backus Avenue intersection and our site if that were to happen, which hopefully there is some. Hopefully, obviously, is popular, but I think we have a good system of on-site storage as well as on the ring road that we can manage it and the mall can manage it. And I think the mall has done a very good job managing traffic in the past for the mall. So I'm sure she'll do a good job doing this if we had to.
Allison?
The only thing I was going to add was on the concerns about the queue, and it might go without saying, but the way our app is built is that you can select 15-minute increments. So there's a threshold at which we won't keep accepting orders. So that also helps stagger the traffic. And if it's really popular when we first open, then guests might just decide to, dine in with us. So that should, hopefully help throttle some of those concerns about the queue.
Thank you. Anything else, Bob? You okay?
I'm okay. Okay, thank you.
Commission members, Jen, did I call the opposition? Yeah, I think I did.
Did you?
You did, yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
Commission members, any other questions for the applicant? Anything at this time? Jen, I don't think we're waiting for any. Are we waiting for any city departments?
We are, Mr. Chairman. We are waiting for the traffic engineer.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, sorry about that. So it would be my suggestion that you keep the hearing open.
Okay. Commission members, unless there's any further discussion, I'll entertain a motion to continue the public hearing.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Motion made. Do I hear a second by Mr. Urice? Thank you, Joel. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I will take a roll call vote. A yes is to continue the public hearing, and no is to not continue the public hearing. Mr. Urice?
Yes.
Mr. Kiokio?
Yes.
Mr. Sylvain?
Yes.
And Chairman Finaldi votes yes. This matter will be continued until our next regularly scheduled meeting. Thank you, folks, for a nice presentation. Thank you.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
Okay. Let me find my agenda here. Okay. We have nothing under continuation, nothing under old business. We have no referrals. You can take a look at the new business coming, commission members. Under correspondence, just the meeting schedule for 2021. And a few things for other matters that you can take a look at. Jen, Sharon, anything else for the good of the order this evening?
So I was waiting to see how things would go with the mall application tonight and hoping that we were going to get Abdul's staff report and it was going to be a clean sign off and we'd be able to close tonight. So we wouldn't have to have that special meeting in December, but at this point we didn't receive it. The mall has conveyed their concern about the schedule, and if it pleases the commission, I'd like to have that special meeting. That way the hope would be, so I believe it's December 16th.
16.
Yes.
Thank you. The 16th. Hopefully we'll have all comments in and revisions made and the commission can close and hopefully give me guidance, and we would have that ready. I would have that ready for the commission for the first meeting in January. So that's kind of how I see it happening. Again, it really depends on Abdul's comments. And I know at the last meeting I mentioned the chance of having the special meeting, but I think we really have to get this, the mall application through within a timely timeframe.
Yeah, Jen, thank you. You know what, folks, we typically try to cancel our second meeting in December as it butts up to the holidays, but just because of scheduling and because of timing, we kind of have to have one this year. So I'm sorry, Jennifer and I did talk about it. We tried to do what we could, but we're just going to have that meeting. So that's kind of the way it goes. I mean, I guess none of us are traveling, or few of us are traveling, so we're gonna be around, so that's good news. But anyway, we tried, and we have to have that meeting. So thanks, Jen, for that.
We
Thanks.
may have to start referring to you as Chairman Grinch.
Oh, that's not nice.
Just as long as you don't sing the Grinch song, Joel, I'll take it. Okay, anything else? Hearing nothing, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
A second.
Motion made and seconded to adjourn. A yes is to adjourn, a no is to not adjourn. Mr. Urice?
Yes.
Mr. Kiokio?
Yes.
Mr. Sylvain?
Yes.
Chairman Finaldi votes yes. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Have a good